the study of the brain has evolved remarkably over the centuries, weaving together philosophy, medicine, and eventually neuroscience. Ancient civilizations like Egypt and Greece debated whether the heart or the brain was the seat of thought and emotion. Hippocrates, around the 4th century BCE, was one of the first thinkers to argue that the brain, not the heart, was the center of sensation and intelligence. Yet for centuries, this idea was overshadowed by other theories, including Aristotle's belief that the heart was the source of thought. It wasn't until the 19th and 20th centuries, when pioneers like Santiago Ramon y Cajal used microscopes to map neurons, and Donald Hebb proposed that neurons that fire together, wire together, that we began to understand how experiences reshape the brain. These early breakthroughs laid the foundation for the field of neuroscience, shifting the view of the brain from a static organ to a dynamic, adaptive system constantly shaped by interaction and experience. In the mid-20th century, brain research began to accelerate with the discovery of neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to change its structure and function throughout life. For a long time, scientists believed the adult brain was fixed and unchangeable, that after childhood, neural pathways became rigid and set. But as researchers studied stroke patients who recovered lost abilities, blind individuals whose brains adapted to process sound more acutely, and musicians whose motor regions grew with practice, the picture transformed. It became clear that the brain was not a hardwired machine, but a living, responsive organ. This understanding has since expanded into recognizing how mental training, such as learning, meditation, or therapy, can physically reshape brain networks, strengthening connections we use and pruning away those we neglect. Neuroplasticity is now considered one of the most exciting frontiers in brain science, revealing that change is always possible, no matter our age. At the heart of neuroplasticity is the principle that neurons communicate and connect at synapses, the tiny junctions where chemical and electrical signals pass from one cell to another. When we practice a skill, whether it's playing piano, learning a language, or even changing a thought pattern, we activate certain neural pathways repeatedly. With each repetition, the synaptic connection strengthens, making the pathway more efficient and automatic. Over time, the brain actually reallocates resources, more neurons, more blood flow, thicker myelin sheaths on axons, to support the well-used circuits. Conversely, connections we stop using weaken and may eventually disappear, a process called synaptic pruning. This system allows us not only to learn, but also to unlearn, to overwrite harmful habits or beliefs with healthier, more adaptive ones. In short, the brain is a dynamic, ever-shifting landscape. Psychology has long explored the relationship between thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, often paralleling neuroscience's discoveries without the biological explanations. For instance, cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, is built on the idea that by changing how we think, we can change how we feel and act. This approach aligns beautifully with what neuroscience reveals. Our repeated thought patterns carve deep grooves in our neural circuitry, reinforcing particular emotional and behavioral responses. If we constantly tell ourselves negative or self-critical stories, those pathways become dominant, making it easier for our brains to slip into anxious or depressive loops. But if we practice reframing our thoughts, challenging distortions, and cultivating more balanced perspectives, we begin to physically rewire those pathways. This integration of psychological insight and brain science underscores the profound power of inner work. One especially fascinating discovery from recent years is the power of self-talk, specifically, how the language we use to speak to ourselves can influence our mental and emotional states. Studies show that when people shift from first-person language, "I'm so overwhelmed, I can't do this," to using second-person pronouns, "you can handle this," "you're strong enough," or even their own name, they create psychological distance. This shift allows them to coach themselves as if they were supporting a friend, reducing emotional reactivity and improving problem solving. For example, instead of saying, "I always mess up," you might say, "Your name, you've handled tough things before, and you can navigate this too." This small but powerful change taps into the brain's self-regulation systems, interrupting automatic negative loops and opening space for more constructive thinking. Why does using you or your own name work so effectively? Researchers suggest it's because we're wired to be more objective and supportive toward others than toward ourselves. When you talk to yourself in the second person, you activate brain regions linked to perspective taking, creating a mental gap between the immediate raw emotion and the part of you that can reflect and guide. This shift engages the prefrontal cortex, the brain's executive center responsible for planning, impulse control, and rational decision-making, while dampening activity in the amygdala, the region associated with emotional reactivity. In essence, you become your own coach, mentor, or compassionate friend, leveraging inner dialogue to reshape your emotional experience. Remarkably, research shows that meaningful changes in stress regulation, mood, and focus can begin within just 3 days of practicing this kind of self-talk. To intentionally rewire your brain, it's important to create a dedicated, consistent path of practice, just like you would if you were training your body. This requires setting clear intentions about the habits or patterns you want to change, whether it's reducing negative self-talk, increasing resilience, developing gratitude, or managing anxiety. Neuroscience tells us that consistency is key. The more frequently you activate a neural circuit, the stronger it becomes. This means you need to design a routine that allows for daily practice, not occasional effort. For example, you might commit to 5 minutes every morning of positive self-coaching, 10 minutes of mindfulness meditation, or journaling exercises that challenge unhelpful beliefs. Over time, these small, regular efforts accumulate, reshaping the brain's architecture. An effective brain rewiring plan integrates multiple layers: intention, repetition, emotion, and reinforcement. You begin by setting a clear intention. What specific change do you want to cultivate? Then you repeat the new behavior or thought pattern consistently, ideally anchoring it to emotional experiences, since emotions enhance neural learning. For example, practicing gratitude not only involves listing things you're thankful for, but also feeling the warmth or appreciation as you do it. Finally, you reinforce the change by recognizing and rewarding small wins, which boosts motivation and releases dopamine, the brain's reward chemical. This loop, intention, repetition, emotion, reinforcement, forms the backbone of effective neural rewiring. It's also vital to understand that the mind is not a separate, static entity, but part of a broader living system. Our minds, much like our bodies and everything in the universe, are pliable, flexible, and moldable. Just as muscles strengthen with use and atrophy with neglect, mental patterns adapt to the environments and experiences we expose them to. Quantum physics even suggests that, at the fundamental level, the universe itself is in constant flux, shaped by observation and interaction. This view aligns with both ancient wisdom and modern science, reminding us that change is woven into the very fabric of existence. We are not prisoners of our past wiring. We are dynamic participants in an unfolding process. Ancient traditions across cultures intuitively understood many of these truths. Practices like meditation, mantra repetition, visualization, and ritual were not just spiritual exercises. They were powerful tools for focusing attention, reshaping perception, and cultivating desired states of mind. The yogic and Buddhist traditions emphasized mindfulness and compassion as ways to transform consciousness, long before Western science caught up with MRI machines and neuroimaging. Similarly, indigenous and shamanic practices often involved storytelling, symbolic acts, and intentional focus. Techniques that, we now know, engage neuroplastic processes to alter experience and perception. Modern neuroscience has provided empirical backing for what the ancients sensed, that the mind and brain are deeply interconnected, and that we can guide our inner evolution. Studies on mindfulness meditation, for example, show measurable changes in brain structure and function after just 8 weeks of practice. Brain regions associated with attention, emotional regulation, and empathy grow denser, while areas linked to fear and stress shrink in activity. These findings reinforce the idea that conscious, intentional practice can literally change the shape and functioning of the brain, offering profound hope for anyone seeking transformation. To begin rewiring your own brain, start with small, achievable steps. Choose 1 or 2 areas of focus, perhaps reducing self-criticism or increasing daily calm, and design a simple practice you can do consistently. For example, you might set aside 10 minutes each morning to sit quietly, observe your thoughts, and gently shift negative statements into supportive second-person phrases. Or you might write a daily list of 3 things you appreciate about yourself, allowing yourself to truly feel the gratitude. Keep the practice short and repeatable. Consistency matters far more than intensity. Over time, as the neural circuits strengthen, you can expand and deepen the practice. One useful outline for brain rewiring includes 4 key stages: awareness, intention, practice, and reinforcement. Awareness means noticing the patterns you want to change, catching yourself in the act of negative self-talk, anxious spirals, or limiting beliefs. Intention involves deciding what new pattern you want to create and committing to it. Practice means engaging in the new thought, behavior, or emotion regularly, even if it feels awkward at first. Reinforcement involves celebrating small wins, tracking progress, and surrounding yourself with supportive cues or environments that help maintain momentum. The results of dedicated neural rewiring can be profound and wide-ranging. On a mental level, you may experience greater emotional stability, improved focus, reduced anxiety, and enhanced resilience. On a behavioral level, you might notice healthier habits, stronger relationships, and increased creativity. And on a biological level, brain scans would reveal strengthened neural connections, increased gray matter density, and shifts in brainwave patterns. While some changes can be felt within days, lasting transformation typically unfolds over weeks or months of steady practice, mirroring the timeline of physical training or skill development. It's important to remember that rewiring the brain is not about perfection or eliminating all negative thoughts. It's about shifting the balance. Just as you wouldn't aim to completely avoid physical discomfort in a fitness program, you don't aim to banish every challenging emotion or thought. Instead, you build capacity, flexibility, and choice. You give yourself new pathways to travel so you're no longer stuck on autopilot. This perspective cultivates self-compassion, resilience, and a growth mindset, all of which further support the brain's ability to adapt and thrive. Crucially, the brain's flexibility is lifelong. We now know that even in old age, the brain retains a remarkable capacity for change. Studies on older adults show that engaging in novel activities, learning a new language, playing a musical instrument, practicing meditation, can enhance cognitive function, improve memory, and even promote brain regeneration. This challenges the outdated notion that you can't teach an old dog new tricks, and underscores the hopeful reality that change is always possible, no matter where you start. As you embark on the path of brain rewiring, it's helpful to remember the role of patience and gentleness. The brain thrives on steady, non-judgmental practice, not harsh self-criticism or unrealistic expectations. Think of it like planting a garden. You prepare the soil, plant the seeds, water them regularly, and trust that growth will unfold in its own time. Some days will feel smooth and rewarding. Others will feel like you're slogging through mud. Both are part of the process. The key is to keep showing up, knowing that each small effort builds momentum. In summary, rewiring your own brain is a profound, empowering journey grounded in both ancient wisdom and cutting-edge science. By understanding the principles of neuroplasticity, engaging in intentional practice, and cultivating supportive inner dialogue, you can reshape your mental landscape, heal old wounds, and open new possibilities. The brain, like the body, is a living system, flexible, adaptive, and always evolving. When you take ownership of that truth, you step into the role of active participant in your own transformation, shaping not only your mind, but also the quality of your life. To fully engage this rewiring process, it's essential to create a dedicated, structured path. Here's a practical outline of 10 daily steps you can follow. 1. Morning gratitude. Begin each day by naming one or two things you're thankful for, no matter how small. This shifts your brain's focus from threat to appreciation, rewiring attention networks. 2. Use you in self-talk. Throughout the day, especially in moments of difficulty, address yourself kindly in the second person. Treat yourself as both coach and companion. 3. Reframe negative thoughts. When you catch harsh or negative self-statements, pause and gently rephrase them. For example, "You always fail" becomes "You are learning and improving." 4. Daily meditation. Spend at least 5 to 10 minutes in stillness, observing your thoughts and emotions without judgment. This strengthens neural pathways of self-awareness and emotional regulation. 5. Small daily kindnesses. Perform one intentional act of kindness each day, a kind word, a helpful gesture, or even a silent blessing for someone. This wires your brain toward empathy and connection. 6th evening reflection. At the end of each day, ask yourself, what did I learn today? Where did I grow? Where can I be gentler with myself tomorrow? 7. Journaling. Keep a simple record of your progress, noticing patterns, challenges, and shifts. Writing things down helps consolidate new neural connections. 8. Positive environment. Surround yourself with people, ideas, and media that reflect the kind of mindset you want to cultivate. Our brains mirror what they're exposed to. 9. Conflict reflection. When you feel anger, frustration, or hurt, pause and explore. What's really happening inside me? What old wound or fear is active here? 10. Daily honoring. Choose one small practice each day that honors your being, whether it's a walk in nature, a creative act, or simply a few minutes of conscious rest. It's vital to understand that our minds are as pliable, flexible, and moldable as our bodies, or indeed as everything in the universe. Just as a muscle grows stronger with repeated intentional use, so do our neural pathways. Change is not instant, but it is reliable if we are consistent. The principle of neuroplasticity applies to all aspects of life. We can build resilience, joy, patience, creativity, or even wisdom, one small daily practice at a time. Meditation holds a special role in this process because it allows us to develop meta-awareness, the ability to watch our own mind in action. Without this observing stance, we are fused to our thoughts and emotions, believing them to be absolute truths. With practice, we begin to see that thoughts are just mental events, sensations are just bodily signals, and emotions are just waves that rise and fall. This decoupling frees us to respond rather than react, to choose our direction rather than be swept away by habit. Equally important is the recognition that we must know ourselves deeply and daily. Without daily contact with our inner world, we are at the mercy of unconscious patterns, many of which were installed in childhood through family dynamics, cultural norms, or traumatic events. Knowing yourself is not just a philosophical exercise, it's a practical survival skill, allowing you to catch harmful impulses, heal old wounds, and align your actions with your deeper values. The ancients, in their own language, were pointing us to these truths. Whether it was the Stoic practice of daily examination, the Buddhist emphasis on mindfulness and compassion, or indigenous practices of communion with nature and spirit, they were all urging us toward conscious living. Today, with the added tools of neuroscience and psychology, we can integrate these ancient insights with modern knowledge, creating a path of transformation that is both time-tested and evidence-based. Within 3 days of shifting your self-talk and practicing daily reflection, you may begin to feel small but meaningful shifts. A little less tension, a little more clarity, a touch more patience with yourself. Within 3 weeks, these small shifts compound, leading to greater emotional balance, more constructive choices, and perhaps a growing sense of confidence. By 3 months, the rewiring process deepens, and you may find that certain old triggers no longer grip you as they once did, that compassion comes more easily, and that your relationship to yourself, and by extension, to others, has become softer, stronger, and more authentic. Remember, the brain is not a machine but a living, dynamic system, capable of incredible growth and adaptation at every age. No matter how long you've been caught in certain patterns, change is always possible. What matters most is not perfection, but dedication. A steady commitment to knowing yourself, speaking kindly to yourself, acting compassionately toward others, and engaging in practices that reinforce the neural pathways you want to strengthen. Thank you for visiting the International World Wisdom Well and learning from this carefully curated audiobook. Cultivating global happiness, well-being, and compassionate wisdom. Inside and out, together. This is a gift from our hearts to yours. Please share with those who may benefit. May we all be well. May we all be happy. May we all be wise.